Hi there, folks. Welcome to AV Rant. If you're seeing this, it's the behind the scenes version. Audio might drop out because we're just using Google Hangouts. Our video is going to flick back and forth. There might be pixelization or dropout or anything like that, and that's all because it's behind the scenes. We're also going to be talking about images that you won't be able to see in this version. So if you're interested in having a cleaned up version with clear audio, hopefully somewhat better video, and being able to see the images we're talking about, you'll want to check out the complete 2-hour video version that will be posted usually on Wednesdays. That's usually when it goes up. So
The audio should be way better, though, right? I mean,
oh, the audio is always better.
The video should be better as well, right?
Yeah, usually, except my camera goes all wonky. But yeah,
Oh, well,
with that, I'll switch over to Tom and start whenever you like.
Welcome to another edition of AV Rant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AV Rant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. I didn't watch the Oscars, but I saw most of who won what, and yeah, that's it.
I literally could not care less.
Yep.
Okay, so if you've lived in Florida for any length of time, you know that knowing it's who you know at Disneyland or Disney World, whatever they call it down here, it's who you know, right? It's who you know. Because
Okay.
if you know somebody, because like everybody in Orlando works for Disney in some fashion if they can, because you get free tickets and can get people in. Anyways, we know people who know people.
Okay.
And we got to go on the new Pandora ride, which apparently is like the hot thing.
Yeah,
I
it's
had
a
no
Avatar
idea.
thing. Yeah.
Yes, Avatar, the Pandora, whatever the beast. You ride the dragon things,
Okay.
banshees things, whatever they're called. Anyways, they open the park up 2 hours early to let people go stand in line for 2 hours before the park opens in order to get onto this ride. It's a not virtual reality. It's it's got 3D glasses, and
Okay.
you get on top of this thing that's kind of like a motorcycle. It kind of feels a little bit, you're kind of sitting forward. There's this little thing that comes up along your back to like push you in, and you're supposed to be riding on top of one of those dragon beast thingies, right? Now, if I had stood in line in the hot Florida sun for 2 hours, I would have been pretty unimpressed. But we had knew somebody who knew somebody, like the kind of person. Well, we told them who we knew, and they were like, "Oh, well, you just better go straight through." So we walked in. We were in there like 10, 15 minutes or something. So me and the kids thought this was the best ride out of the two park. We went to Animal Kingdom, which is where this was, and we went to Hollywood Studios, which is we've been there before, but this was their favorite ride. Now, it's sort of supposed to be your mind linked to the avatar person who's really on top of the thing. So whatever. Anyways, you're seeing through their eyes. Now it's one big screen, and everybody's on the same ride. Everybody's on their same little motorcycle looking thing, and you go swooping in and out. And it is honestly, I was like, well, the first thought that went through my head is, I wonder if this is HDR, because it feels like it should be brighter. Like it should be a little bit brighter. It wasn't quite bright enough for me. And part of that was just the glasses, or the 3D glasses. The 3D effects were really, really well done. The motion was very well done, and the way they have this whole thing set up is, when the dragon thing lands, the banshee lands, it kind of shudders under you. You can feel it breathing. They have like these air bladders that go in and out between your legs, so you can kind of feel it breathing underneath you. There's, like, when you go through water and this is a water spray, you get sprayed with water convincingly. It's not like there's a little hose right in front of you that hits you right in like one spot of your face. It's like a mist that you go through, and you can smell the forest as you're going through the forest. You can smell the sea as you're going through the sea. Like, it's a truly impressive, I want to call it 4D experience.
Yeah, it's been called that.
So this is pretty awesome. It's pretty okay.
All right.
It's pretty all right. So I guess check it out if you get a chance. You've got literally all day to kill.
Yeah.
To do this thing. Now, we are going to do a quick review today. I got a pair of headphones in a while back, and my son kind of commandeered them, has been using them.
Okay.
I got his impressions, but they were worthless. So I'm not going to give you his impressions because he has no idea what he's talking about. So I listened to him. They are from I'm sorry. I keep wanting to say QVC because that's what it looks like. OVC. OVC. I've got them right down here. Hold on. OVC headphones. So what they are is sort of in-ear headphones, right? And they've got not only the little rubber tippy thingy that you shove into your ear, but they have sort of What do you call this thing, Rob? This little brace
Like
thing
a
that goes
hook.
up the side. Like it's not a hook that goes around your ear. It's actually goes inside your ear
Oh, okay.
to kind of push it
Okay.
and keep it in place. Now, I like the fit of these. I thought the fit of these was pretty good. Now, their claim to fame, these are the H15 active noise canceling, blah, 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 with bass boost and blah, blah, blah. So this is the thing, right? So you've got the headphones, and then after, like very soon after the headphones, there's an inline control
Mm-hmm.
where both the headphone two cords meet together. Then after that, it goes back down to one single cord. It's got the braided fabric covering, which some people don't like because it makes noise, which is true, but that's just sort of neither here nor there. It's got a right angle hook at the end, and then right towards the very bottom, they have this little black box thing. This is the active noise canceling. So you press the button and
Okay.
the active noise canceling turns on. I think I could probably do it. Yep, green. So that means it's working. And you press it again, it turns
since
off.
the lights are in and it's not plugged in, I'm assuming it runs off batteries.
It does. You plug it in and charge it like with a USB-C or B, or whatever the small mini one, the
Mini
small
or
one.
micro?
The micro one, whatever it is, micro one, I think the small one. And it charges. So this means that you do not have to actually have them plugged into anything to have the USB work. You could just, I mean, the noise canceling work. You could just put this thing in your pocket, turn it on, and have the headphones in. And it's not doing, it's not plugged into anything. So, which is kind of nice, I suppose. It does pass through just fine. And then on the side of, I thought it was on this thing. Notes here on the side of the inline controls, which has the 3-button controls, volume up, volume down, and the button which does everything else. It has an active bass. It has a bass boost button.
Okay.
Now, from what I can tell, they're like, we have 4 speakers in our headphones. I'm like, okay, you're making it sound like you have 4 speakers in each one. What they do is they have 4 total speakers. So one speaker does the noise, the music that you're listening to, and a second one does the active noise canceling, which of course makes sense. All right. But when you flick the little switch on, it takes that second speaker that would normally be used for active noise canceling and makes it play music.
Oh, okay.
Which actually sounds really bad. Okay. To my mind, it's just like this huge hump in the mid-range that makes everything sound a little bit too bright and a little bit too harsh and a little bit too
okay.
Without it, I feel like it's now. If you read the reviews on Amazon, they're like, these things are unlistenable unless you listen to them with the bass boost on. I'm like, I kind of totally disagree with that. I feel like they play flatter and more even without the bass boost. And then when you switch the active noise canceling on, if you have the bass boost on, now it's trying to play music and do the active noise canceling at the same time. So everything sounds totally weird. Whereas if you leave the bass boost off, when you click on the active noise canceling, the music stays the same, but then the noise goes away, which is sort of how it should work.
That's probably how it was initially designed, and then somebody in marketing was like, hey, could you use that second driver to boost the bass? And the engineer's like, I guess we could. I guess that's a thing that's possible.
Yeah, that's exactly the way I felt about it too. So the downsides, the upsides, the noise canceling works really well. They're cheap. I think not on sale at Amazon, they're $50.
Yeah.
So for active noise canceling, $50 is a pretty good deal. They're comfortable enough. They have multiple tips that you can use and that sort of thing. But it's pretty cheap. And not only that, I've seen them on sale at Amazon for like $20 or $30 from time to time. So keep an eye out for a deal. I know I've seen them on sale. I was really surprised at how cheap they were. So $50 even is a good price for active noise canceling, I feel. They're comfortable, whatever. Everything's heavy. It's got this inline control thing that's heavy. They actually have a clip right next to the inline control. It does move up and down. You can move it. But you absolutely need this, because if not, like the whole thing will pull out of your face without it. And this thing near the end, it's just heavy. I mean, it's not going to damage your phone or anything, but it just feels too bulky. That's about the only thing I don't like about them is the weight. I hate the bass boost, but you don't have to use it. So that's
it's optional. Yeah.
But I mean, overall, I think they're pretty good for $50. I feel like they're a pretty good deal. I mean, if you're looking for active noise canceling that's going to actually stay in your ear, and that's one of the things. Even when they started to come out of my ear, like I used them while I was my litmus test for in ears is doing the lawn while I use them, and the active noise canceling worked really well. And on top of that, they stayed in my even when they started to come out of my ear, the little brace thing kept them in there long enough for me to get up there and take my glove off and fix it and all that stuff.
All right.
So really, really nice little headphones for $50. So I recommend them.
Cool. So that's the OVC H15 active noise canceling earphones.
That's right. So, all right. So let's get to the podcast here. First, we're going to start with our listeners of the week. We thank our listeners of the week, people who've supported the podcast in some way. We want to start with our Patreons over at patreon.com/AVRant podcast. There's 51 of them now.
Yeah, it's gone down.
Lost a couple. That's okay.
Yeah.
They'll come back, or somebody will replace them, or whatever.
Yes.
But to our 51 patrons who are supporting us monthly, Patreon takes a little cut there, and they give us the rest. I think the minimum is $1 a month, so that's $12 a year to listen to this fine podcast, where I talk about spoilers for that Pandora ride. I don't really think it's a spoiler. You're still going to be amazed by it. I could still talk. We were in Orlando all weekend, so we went to both parks. I got lots of stuff, but I'm not going to. So thank you to all of our patrons over at Patreon.
Yeah, patreon.com/AVRant podcast. Thank you so much to our 51 patrons.
If you have some way you want to support the podcast, just let us know. You can always go to www.avrant.com and click on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link. You'll find a link to the Patreon over there. And if you can support us in some other way, I don't care what it is, tell a friend. Leave us a review someplace. iTunes is always a good location for that. Just let us know what you did, and we will mention you on this podcast. Let us get into the news, because I understand we have more than a couple of questions this week.
We got a gazillion. We should give out contact info, though, because,
did I not do that yet?
Nope, we skipped over that.
All right. If you want to contact us, you can reach us by emailing us at question@avrant.com. That's where you want to send all of your questions. I don't care what they are or how many times you think they've already been answered on this podcast. If you're a little confused, somebody else is too, send them to question@avrant.com. You can come to www.avrant.com. Click on, just leave us a comment there. Facebook.com/avrant podcast. Go to youtube.com/c/avrant. I feel like that's right.
Yep, that's correct.
If you want to reach Rob directly, it's rob@avrant.com. His Twitter is @firstreflect. I'm Tom at avrant.com. My Twitter is @avrant_Tom. We have our producer, Austin. His Twitter is @Austenpond, TEN Pond. He helps put together the question list and should be finishing up that video any day now.
It's got to be a masterpiece after this long.
It's good. It's supposed to be the first. He told me about the beginning of this month. I was going to see it. I haven't seen it yet, so I'm sure it's on the way any second now. So Austin is got his own podcast, the We Watch Movies podcast that evaluates the sense from 4D ride things.
Well, the number of options is growing.
It is. We went to the Bugs Life thing too. I don't. There was a scent thing in there, but that was a kind of cool little 3D. The 3D was terrible. Oh, I sat too close. I think that was part of it. But the 3D was just awful. So, but they had like, you got squirted with water, and if you were sitting just right on the seat, and when they shot out, like something shot a stinger at you, you could get like kind of stabbed in the back a little bit. It was cool. I liked it. I like that part of it. It's definitely gimmicky, but for what they were doing, the thing that was great is they warned you before you go in. Like, this is it gets dark. There's some scary bits. So, you might want to watch it. Kids were losing. People are like, it's a Bug's Life. I'm taking my 2-year-old. Those kids lost their minds. They were like, get me out of here. This is terrifying. I'm like, scarring children. Thank you, Disney. You did it to me with the whole Bambi, everybody's mom has to die thing. Do it to the next generation. They need it. Toughen them up, I say. All right.
By the way, that was all about We Watch Movies, Austin's podcast.
Yes.
Kind of went off the rails there, but yeah.
That's
we watch
okay.
Movies, yeah.
We watch movies. Check it out. They don't actually watch the video. They just go in there blindfold, smell stuff. All right. In the news, ELAC is introducing an all-new debut 2.0 series. New cabinets, new drivers, and the bookshelf and center speakers are front-ported now. There are two bookshelves, 2 centers, and a 4-inch deep on-wall. That's pretty thick.
It's pretty narrow.
4-inch deep?
Yeah.
Or wide?
Well, like 4 inches from front to back that will go on the wall. That's not that thick.
That's kind of thick for an on-wall. I kind of want it to be a little... Okay. Anyways, 200-watt 10-inch subwoofer with a 10-inch passive rater. That was doing air quotes for the subwoofer part
Mhm.
of it, because 200 watts and 10 inches doesn't inspire confidence. And a 10-inch passive rater with an Atmos module in the new lineup. Prices have gone up about $20 per model versus the original debut series. So grab your debuts while you can. So there they are. There's a picture of them. You showing the picture?
I showed the picture already. Yep.
All right, there it is. What's that crappy looking thing with the front port in it on the right side? What is that? Is that
Well, that's a little sub that they didn't announce as being new, so I guess that's a holdover from the previous debut series. That's the 8-incher.
Yeah, that one looks like garbage. All right, going on. Got some comments from some listeners. Greg got inspired by Rob's refurbished OLED TV purchase, so he found a refurbished LG B7 OLED for himself. It's the 55-inch model to replace his 50-inch Panasonic Plasma, but now he wants to get the 65-inch to replace his 60-inch LG Plasma he has behind his projector screen. So I guess he's on the lookout for that.
People heard like, oh, hey, refurbished OLEDs. Though they actually look good, and they do. And now he wants a second one.
Good.
Congrats, Greg. Congrats on the first purchase.
Jonathan, it's Jonathan's birthday. He gets to buy himself a new piece of home theater gear as his birthday present from his wife. That works, dude. As long as she gets to buy herself something too, I guess, on her birthday. Anyways, and Best Buy just sent him a 10% off coupon that's valid until the end of March. But Jonathan knows the fine print. We definitely won't go through all of it here. Yes, we won't, because it is a lot of, whoa, my goodness.
I put it there just so Tom could see briefly what we're talking about, but we're not going to go through it all.
But the list of exclusions for the 10% off coupon are extensive. Think of almost any product by itself, and it's probably in the fine print in this exclusion list. So what does it leave? HDMI cables? Probably not, but those are in there too. So let's see here. Let's see.
Looks like cables.
It excludes, I'm going to read some of them. Amazon streaming players, Google Chromecast and Chromecast audio, Bose audio, all of Bose.
All of
Sonos.
All of
Sonos. Polk Audio. Denon.
Yeah.
Select Samsung Home Audio. So there is some Samsung you can get with it.
Yeah.
Select Samsung Home Audio TVs, Blu-rays, and DVD players. So some of them you can, some of them you can't. So all of Sony. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Sony Home Audio TVs and 3D glasses. Okay, so if you can find something from Sony that's not home audio, TV, or 3D glasses, Blu-ray players, DVD players, and set-top boxes. Okay, so you can't buy anything from Sony.
That's all from Sony, yeah.
Select LG TVs and Blu-ray players. Select Sharp TVs. Microsoft Xbox. Any of that. Sony, PlayStation, and Nintendo gaming consoles off. All gaming. Why did you
just say all gaming consoles?
Why did you say all gaming consoles to begin with? Apple HomePod, Apple.
Okay, let's not read them all. It's
no, but look, it's all the. Why are you listing all the? I just say all of Apple. You can't, maybe an Apple gift card you can get?
So, Jonathan, what I noticed there is it doesn't mention computer stuff. So I guess computer stuff you can buy with 10% off.
No cameras, no lenses.
No. Maybe get yourself a hard drive, because I'm pretty darn sure Jonathan already has an NVIDIA Shield, which was another thing I didn't see listed as an exclusion. But, maybe get yourself a hard drive for your NVIDIA Shield.
Any drone that's over $500 you can't have.
Yeah.
No iPhones or accessories. No, nothing. Martin Logan,
it
Rotel,
is
Macintosh.
One of the longest lists of excluded items I've ever seen.
ABC, Epson projectors, Sunbright TVs. I don't even know what that is.
That's the outdoor TVs. Yeah.
Okay. B&W, Rotel. I already said that. Universal Remote, Peachtree, Savant, Sonos 5. Oh, Oppo. They sell Oppo? I know that.
I guess. Through Magnolia.
If you're in Puerto Rico, you're completely out of luck, because that excludes all the stores there. You can't do it at the kiosks. You can't do it online.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. They really should have just listed what you are allowed to take 10% off of. It would have been a much shorter list.
Instead of that, they could have just put the pictures of each thing you're allowed to buy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good
All
job.
right. Let's go.
It's not worth it. Mike has backed up his movie collection as MKVs. Many of his titles are in 1080p, some are in 4K SDR, and some are in 4K HDR. They all have lossless audio. My wife is working on the computer in the other room. I can tell because I get all these backup notices. All right. I think my son is streaming video in the other room as well. So get ready for some slowdowns. He is able to play back any of these files using his NVIDIA Shield TV. Plex or Kodi work just fine. And it's the only device to come across that works for outputting both the video and the lossless audio, including Atmos or DTS-X if the movie has it. But there's a problem. Doesn't sound like there's a problem. If the NVIDIA Shield is set to output 4K HDR, it always stays in rec color I'm sorry, the Rec 2020 color space. It does not automatically switch to Rec 709 output for SDR content. You can manually select Rec 709 color output, but this becomes a hassle when you have to manually switch every time between SDR and HDR content. For their part, NVIDIA said they're working on adding automatic color space switching, but they warned it won't be until sometimes after the next planned update. So what do we think you should do? Should you just leave the Shield in 4K HDR output mode all the time and accept that sometimes strange looking colors for all of his SDR content? Should you just deal with manually switching all the time? Should you just wait for NVIDIA's eventual update? Well, just waiting is what? You turn it off and not use it until then? That seems silly. Or is there a better playback device that will get the automatic color space switching correct while still letting him output full lossless audio, blah, blah, blah. Well, clearly you're going to wait with this thing because it does everything you want it to do, and it'd be silly to buy it and then have to buy something else just for this interim period. If it were me, I will tell you what I would do. If the colors that you get with the SDR content when it's set to HDR are only mildly offensive, I would personally leave it in HDR all the time.
Okay.
If that was the case. If it were the other way, I would be switching it constantly.
Right.
But that would be me.
Yeah. So first of all, I don't know of any other devices that will let you output the 4K HDR video and the lossless audio. No, hopefully and supposedly the Apple TV 4K will, but they haven't done that update yet. So the lossless audio bit streaming is something apparently that they're aware of and working on, but it hasn't come out yet, so it's not a solution yet. I would probably just manually switch back and forth, but maybe there's other people in his house. He doesn't want to have to instruct them how to do that.
That's what it's probably about. It
would totally make sense. So the only other thing I was thinking of is, could you maybe have a second device? Because, if you're using Plex or Kodi, you could easily have that set up on a second, maybe as an Xbox One, or it could even happen directly through his TV or something. If it is a matter of other people in your house that you don't want to have to always switch, could you set some second device to always be, say, 4K SDR? Because they're probably not even going to notice if the HDR isn't active.
Right.
And let them use that one, instruct them to use that one, and then you, who's familiar with all the settings, you can manually switch back and forth between SDR and HDR until they bring out this eventual update, which, NVIDIA has been pretty darn good about keeping it updated, but they warned, they're like, we've got a planned update already in the works. This to handle this color space switching isn't going to happen until after our next planned update. So it's going to be a while is what they're warning. It's a little bit unfortunate. Apple did seem to sort out all of the automatic switching between frame rates and color spaces and HDR and SDR and all that. They sorted that out on the Apple TV 4K. So if they can do it, I'm sure NVIDIA can do it with their machine too. But in either case, you're waiting for an update. Audio in the case of Apple, video in the case of NVIDIA. So, don't have a great solution other than maybe if you have some secondary device.
It doesn't sound like something that could be handled through a macro either, right?
Yeah, I mean, maybe you could program a sequence into a Harmony or something to like turn on HDR, turn on SDR or something. I'm not entirely sure. That could be one other way, though, programming a sequence.
Yeah. I guess that's the only other thing I can think of.
Yeah.
Jeremy is having a house built, and the garage has a bonus room above it that he'd like to use as a dedicated theater room. The room is 16.5 feet long, 12.5 feet wide. In the middle of the ceiling is 9 feet high, but the sides are sloped to a steep angle down to 5-foot high side walls. His plan is to have a 100 or 110-inch screen come down from the front window and sit about 10 feet away, leaving 6 feet of space behind him. Since the place is being built, he'd like to pre-run all the wire during construction. And I guess we're looking at pictures here if you're online, but basically think of an A-frame.
Yeah.
And you're at the attic space of an A-frame. So he's got 5 feet of walls on the side, and then the A starts, and there's a flat section in the middle that's probably, I'm going to say, 3 feet across.
Yeah, well, the window outer frame is supposedly 3 feet according to the diagram, so it looks like maybe the flat portion of the ceiling is 3.5 feet wide. Yeah, it's kind of what it looks like.
All right. So he was thinking he'd like to end up with a 5.2.4 Atmos configuration. So where should he pre-wire for the speakers and subs? He had the front left corner and the right rear corner in mind for sub placement. Okay, so he's going to have this thing drop down right in front of the window, like right there.
Yeah, he's going to have the screen come right down in front of the window. Yep. And then he'll be about 10 feet back from that, leaving him about 6 feet behind his seats.
I'd be honest with you. I'm a little wondering why he's even considering a drop screen at all.
So that he can still access the window, I would imagine.
Why would you need to access the window? I mean, why you gotta access the window? It's a home theater, right? Is he going to open the window at some point? Is that the thought? He's going to open the window at some point?
Possibly. Or maybe you're required to have an egress window or something.
Required by who?
Fire code?
Whatever, dude. The fire marshal's not coming to your house. Fire marshal's not coming to your house.
I did want to make a note, just in case, because this sloped ceiling. So those sidewalls are only 5 feet high, and then he does have this very steeply sloped ceiling. Yeah. So you do need to be aware, if you go to the 100 to 110 inch size, the case of a drop down screen is going to be about 9 feet wide. It's going to be between 9 and 9.5 feet wide.
So it hit the ground.
Well, that's the concern, right? So there's only so high you'll be able to put it. So I basically kind of worked it out, because I made some assumptions about how wide the flat portion of the ceiling is, and then worked out the angle. So it looks like it's basically a 40-degree angle from the side wall to that sloped part of the ceiling. That's more or less what I'm getting. That, just eyeballing it, that looks like it could be about right. So if you do that, if you end up with a case that's 9 feet wide, it means that once the screen is down, and you wouldn't actually be having any black above the screen other than the case itself. It'd just be, the white part of the screen would start immediately below the case and then come down. You're looking at having 1 to 1.5 feet. It depends a little bit on how much of a bar at the bottom of the screen there is in that, but you're looking at about 1 to 1.5 feet below the screen. Now that's okay. Is just to be aware that your center speaker is likely going to be no more than about a foot off the ground. Right. Which is fine. You just angle it up at yourself. But that means when you're pre-wiring for your center channel, unless you're going to have an acoustically transparent screen, which it didn't sound like given the distances he was talking about.
Right.
Just be aware that you're probably going to want to wire your center channel close to the floor, because that's where it's going to end up.
To be honest, okay. If I were him, I would consider not doing that at all. I would consider having a acoustically transparent screen that was, I would almost go false wall here, to be honest with you.
Or you could even get one of the ones that is like on a stand.
Yeah.
Like it has legs,
You're right. Something like that.
Because that would allow you to, in an emergency, move it out of the way and get to the window, if that's a concern.
Something along those lines. But my thought here is that he's going to want to have, I think he I don't know. You could have a smaller screen and pull it towards you.
Yes.
First of all, that makes your screen cheaper most of the times, depending on if you go with something custom. But and it will give you the ability to get behind it if you needed to go get your whatever. At this point, you're going to have speakers that are real close to the ground, 9 feet across, and this is a 12-foot wide room, 12.5 foot
12.5 foot wide room.
So you're only looking 3.5 feet.
Well, the screen isn't 9 feet wide, though. You have to remember the case of a motorized drop-down screen is wider than the screen itself. So that's why I wanted to mention that, because he might be going, I can get a 100 or 110-inch screen, and he might have just been thinking about the screen and a regular, like a 3-inch frame around it, but it's realizing that if it's a drop-down one, the case that holds it is wider than that.
I think this is another argument for a fixed screen, even if you're not going to do it acoustically transparent, like a fixed frame screen, you could just attach it, to the ceiling there, have it hang down, and you're actually going to save. You might get yourself another 6 inches at the bottom of this thing.
Well, you might actually be able to fit the 110, because working out for the 9 foot wide, that's probably a 100. Yeah. If it's the 9 foot wide case, so you might actually be able to get that 110-inch size if you went fixed frame.
Yeah, I would go that way if I were you, but that's just me. Okay. All right, so let's continue.
So front left, rear right for the subs. That seems fine to me. I don't see any reason why that wouldn't be all right.
Yeah, I'm looking at his pictures. I don't see that you can't because his rear left, right? Rear left, front right.
Rear left is the entrance door. So rear right, he does have a small corner. Rear right, that looks like it's a door that goes into, I don't know, maybe a powder room or a closet.
He's facing the window, so it's the rear left that is going to have the subwoofer in it. The front right would have the subwoofer in it, right?
No, he said rear right corner. So rear right corner is the closet door, but it swings away. It swings into the closet, not into the room that he's using as the theater.
Yeah, but why wouldn't you put it on the other side? where there's actual a wall there. I mean, there's a corner to put it in.
Yeah, so it could go rear, left, and front, right. That would
That's
also be fine.
basically what
I
I'm
mean,
saying.
honestly, if the walls are open, why not just wire all four corners? Because it's not that much money to throw subwoofer wire into the walls.
I mean, I don't think you need to, but yes, you could do that. I mean, I'd say front right, rear left seems like the right thing. But again, if you're only going to have like 1.5 feet below your screen, and you're going to be really playing with the angles here and sight lines and stuff like that. There's a chance, and you're going to have to put a speaker there someplace too. That's why I kind of like the idea of moving the screen a little bit into the room. And then making it a little bit smaller so that you get the same viewing angle, but gives you more space behind it so that you can put things like subs back there.
Do it with like a 92-inch or something.
Something like that. I like that idea a little bit better. Smaller case, even if you want to do the drop down still, it would drop down, but maybe 2 or 3 feet into the room.
Yeah. Yeah, like 2 feet into the room with a 92 would work out really nicely.
Acoustically transparent if you wanted to, so you could have a higher, but even then, the center channel is going to be able to be higher anyways.
Yeah.
So I know. I like the idea of moving it into the room.
I can back that.
All
yeah,
right.
As for your surround speakers, I mean, you already picked out where you want to put your seat. So on the side walls, a slightly above ear level, not very much, and just a teensy bit behind you.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
That covers your speakers.
Right. The surround speakers. Now the 0.4s, it depends on what he wants. If he wants rears and fronts, or
well, that's his very next question.
Okay, well, we'll get to that in a second. Then he doesn't have any space for surround backs, really, not good ones.
Yeah. So I agree. 5.2.4 makes sense.
Makes sense, right? Where should his Atmos speakers go? Should he plan for front heights and top middles, or top fronts and top rears? What is best? Can you just wire for all of them?
Just wire for 6.
Wire for 6.
Well, we'll go back to the old standby. Would you prefer to notice that things are directly above you, or would you prefer more of an enveloping sound is kind of moving around above you, but it's not quite so pinpoint noticeable? If you want it pinpoint noticeable, go for top middles, and then it's going to have to be front heights. Put them 5 feet in front of you. If you would rather have the slightly more enveloping and not quite so noticeable, go for top fronts and top rears, and basically put them 4 feet in front of you, 4 feet behind you, which should be doable.
Yeah.
Not 6 feet behind you, 10 feet in front of you. So
I'll be honest with you. I've got the top middles, and I don't feel like they're pinpoint noticeable. So I think it's going to be 6 of one, half dozen of another. But you can just wire for all of it, and then see what you like. If it were me, I mean, I would just ask you this: what sounds like something you would like the best? Like based on what sounds like a good idea to you. You've got the space for any of it.
Yes.
So it does make some sense to me for you to go to top fronts and top rears, basically because you don't have any rear surround backs. So it gives you a little bit of something behind you. It makes sense to me to go that way. That's probably the way I would direct you. But if you said, I really want top middles, I'd be like, yeah, dude, that's cool too. That's kind of how I would go for
Agreed.
it. He'd like for the Atmos speakers to be in ceiling, but will the steep slope on the sides of the ceiling be a problem? Could he use the in-ceiling speakers that have built-in angle, but actually aim them away from the seats instead of towards the seats, so that sort of aims the speaker closer to straight down, given the angled ceiling? I mean, I think that's fine. If you've got those angled speakers that are supposed to be angled and you angle them so they're going straight down, I think that's a really good idea, to be honest with you.
And even so most of them are either a 15 or a 20 degree angle that's built in. So if you actually, imagine that the ceiling were flat, you'd have them angled away from you instead of toward you. But then it looks like you've got about a 40 degree angle on there. So they're still going to end up about 20 degrees toward you. Even though you installed them aiming away from you. So, but that'd be fine. I actually think that's a pretty good idea, because 5 feet on the sidewalls definitely is not high enough.
No, it's not.
And then anything else would have to be, like, you could use focal little birds on their little pivot mounts.
That would work too, yeah.
Those. But if you want them to be in ceiling, I agree that going for the ones that have the built-in angle, but then twisting them the opposite way of what a flat ceiling would normally have you do, that makes a lot of sense.
I like it.
Yeah.
Dan. So Dan is pretty happy with his current theater setup, but like the rest of us, it's never really finished. He'd like to improve things further if he can. Dan, walk away. Walk away from the theater and just enjoy it while you can. His room is set up to be 17 feet long, 23 feet wide, and 9 feet high at the peak of a ceiling. Although the front and back of the ceiling are sloped, so the front wall and the back wall end up being 7.5 feet high.
It's a
Again,
little
we got
bit similar to the last question.
similar, but wider, much
Yeah,
wider.
that's right.
And
Yeah.
he's not looking into the A, like the A is not above him. He's going to the side. So
That's
the
correct.
short wall is
He's
where his screen
rotated
is.
90 degrees.
Yeah, the short wall is where the screen is. All right. He's using a 135-inch acoustically transparent screen from Elite Screens. It's acoustically transparent, but it is literally on the wall. Am I not seeing this correctly?
Well, there's a reason for that.
But he has not put any of his speakers behind it yet. There is an empty cavity in the wall behind the screen, but he isn't sure if he should do anything special before putting speakers into that cavity. What do we think? Can we see the cavity?
Can't
No,
really
we
see it,
can't.
although you can sort of make out in the image where you're looking at the back of his room that it looks like there's kind of a cavity behind his seats as well. So I imagine that's sort of a mirror of what's happening on the other side there.
I have no idea.
There's the projector, then it looks like he's got some panels or something below the projector, and then just to the right of that you can sort of see this cutout behind his seats. So it's something like that. All you need to do is put some insulation in there, and it doesn't have to be pretty insulation because it's going to be covered up by your screen, but I would have some insulation in that cavity and then put your center speaker in there. I wouldn't try to put your front, left, and right towers behind the screen. That doesn't make sense. Just the center. The center is right now like on the ground. So if the cavity is you could have the center in the cavity, just put some insulation in there, center speaker in there, and done. Perfect.
And this actually speaks to our first question quite well. I mean, look at where this guy's center channel is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is where your center channel is going to be if you continue along the path that you could go a foot off the ground, maybe.
Yeah. Not in this one. I mean, he's
the other guy.
That's right.
Yeah, just throwing some insulation in there would be fine. I'm not worried about your speaker overheating or anything like that. I mean, it's not like you're putting anything in there.
Speakers don't generate a ton of heat.
Yeah.
Unless
so
going wrong.
I think that would. Do I think that you're going to notice much of a difference? I think that in this case, there is a chance. And the reason being is that if you're finding that you may find things a little bit clearer, like a little crisper. Meaning that if it's coming up at you and has to go through your feet. I mean, I'm looking at his picture and his feet are literally in the way of his center speaker as he's taking the picture.
Right.
It would be near his ears, one would think. Maybe not, but there's a chance that you might find things to be a little bit crisper. Do I think it's going to be a monumentally large difference? No, I don't think so. But
I mean, since it's there, I would say it's worth doing.
I would do it. Yeah. He'd like to maybe upgrade his receiver and expand to Atmos. Is the Rant SR6011 still the most cost-effective choice? I mean, it depends on how many speakers you want, right?
Well, I mean, if you're going to do Atmos, we always say it'd be nice to have 4, which means you need something that can do at least 9.
He hasn't told us how many he's got. I'm looking at a 5-point something system.
Oh, yeah, because his seats are very close to the back wall.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's a little bit tricky because ideally you would lower your surrounds, but he can't really do so on his left side because it's above a door.
There. Yeah.
So yeah, I would stop at 5.2.4 in this instance. Yeah. But so is it the most cost effective? It is at the moment at Accessories for Less. The SR6011 is available for $800 and all the other ones are $900 or more. So that's the least expensive. $800 can get you going.
Is he going to ask where a speaker? Yeah, he's most likely go with on-ceiling speakers. Any in particular would suggest the rest of his speakers are Infinity Beta series. I don't care what your speakers are. I'd go with the smallest focal birds that you can find.
Focal little birds, yeah.
You're going to have to aim them. If you're going to go with on-ceiling, being able to aim them is going to be a huge benefit.
Yep.
So that would make the most sense to me. You're going to end up having top, middles, and top and front heights.
Yes.
Is essentially what you end up having because you have no other option. You're not going to be able to put anything behind you. So there you go.
Yeah. So straight above you, same width apart as your front, left, and right, and then 5 feet in front of you, and call those ones front heights.
And again, they're not going to be aimed towards you. They're going to be aimed straight down.
Yes. Yeah. Although you feel free to play with it because we're not going to tell you you're wrong if you prefer having them aimed at you, and you can very easily with the Focal little birds because they pivot.
He's heard us talk about different ceiling speaker configurations. How does that actually work in terms of what the receiver does with different Atmos soundtracks? If you use different overhead speaker positions, how do you know which of the 4 overhead positions would be best? Well, we just kind of discussed this. There is no perfect answer for that. It's really about your room. And in your case, your decision is made for you based on your seating. So the best for your room is top heights or front heights. Whatever.
Front heights, top
and
middles.
top middles. because you have no other option.
Yeah,
So
and how does the renderer work when like, let's say you went front heights and top rears, which we don't hear a lot, but it's totally a possible combination. How does the renderer treat that differently than top fronts and top rears, or front heights and top middles, or top middles and rear heights, whatever your combo is? Honestly, because I've played around a little bit in my setup, it's kind of just left and right, forward and back.
yeah.
That's honestly what it breaks down to. And if you're wondering, well, then how could you have 6 overhead speakers like what the new X8500H can do? It is rendering the object. So it's saying, okay, this sound object is starting in the rear right, let's say, and that object is moving to the front left. So as the object moves there, if you've set up something with 6 overhead speakers like the X8500H could do, it'll just say, okay, well, as that object moves, I'm going to pass it through the top middles because that's where the object would go. But for most of us who are going to have 4 overhead speakers, it's pretty much just left to right, front to back, and whatever you have, that's how it's going to move it.
You're basically telling your receiver, or at least the Atmos renderer, how far away your speaker is from your seated position. That's all you're doing with these positions. You're telling it on what side of the room it is, if it's front or back, and then how far away it is. Because they tell you, if you're this far away, this is that speaker. If you're this far away, this is that speaker. If it's right over your head, it's this speaker. So all you're basically doing is that, giving it that positioning. So it knows if it's a top middle, it doesn't have to be nearly as loud, or the sound has to do specific things than if it was a top rear or a top front. So, that sort of thing. All right. He already knows he wants to replace his 10-inch Infinity subwoofer. That's a very good idea. But do we have any other ideas that we think would really improve his setup? We usually say room treatments, but I think you already have some in here.
He's got some behind his seat, it looks like. But other than that, he's got his curtains. He's got carpet at least, so that's significant. But there is a fair amount of bare space. Now, putting the insulation in the cubby behind your screen will be a help.
That won't hurt.
That won't hurt anything. I wouldn't mind something on these flat angled ceilings. That's a very reflective looking ceiling.
Right. The sidewalls too. I mean, at least the one I can see, you could probably throw something up on the sidewalls, maybe even behind the speakers or that sort of thing. Room treatments would probably be good. A second subwoofer once you buy a new subwoofer would be nice.
I mean, that would be the biggest. The biggest would be going to 2 subwoofers.
Yeah. If you look at your room, you've got your right wall. There's I'm guessing is a window there.
Probably.
If you go to the left side of that window, right behind where the green chair is, right, which would put it in the front third of the room. Then you go to the other side and you put a subwoofer next to that door that's not open. The back there, that puts it sort of kind of in the same sort of space. I mean, that's kind of opposite corner-ish. I mean,
it's like left wall, right wall, slightly diagonally offset across from each other. Yeah.
You could also do
corners.
The corners, the front right corner, the back left corner. That seems like the only 2 places that would work, because you could put it kind of right behind that door, maybe. I'm a little confused at how much space there is behind that door. I gotta be honest with you. But those are the 2 places that I see. You could go for the dual subwoofer setup, would not be a bad idea.
Dual subs would change your system more than anything else, because the acoustic treatments, they'll be nice, and they're the sort of thing where if you got used to having them and then took them away, you would notice. But I wouldn't really say, oh yeah, you're gonna think this is a massive upgrade as soon as you put them in there, because it's not like your room is like a horrible echo chamber, because at least it's fully carpeted. That's a big deal. The dual subs is the main thing. After that, you're just going to be like upgrading stuff.
All right. Steve on Twitter. There's no way he sent all this on Twitter. All right. Steve on Twitter. Steve has 2 Atmos setups. The smaller one is 5.1.2 in his upstairs living room, and he was using the Pioneer Andrew Jones Atmos modules on top of his towers, but he really wasn't noticing any Atmos overhead effects. So he took the modules and mounted them up high on the sidewalls, just like he would have done for regular satellite speakers. Instead of using them as up-firing speakers, he renamed them on his receiver as top middles and rerun Odyssey. He's much more impressed with the sound this way. Any reason he shouldn't be doing this? He seems to recall Dolby claiming that the dedicated modules have a special crossover that's meant to work specifically with the Dolby-enabled. Shut up. You were fine. You're fine.
You are fine. Yes.
You are fine.
This is totally fine. If you look at Klipsch, they have fully, endorsed and branded Dolby Atmos enabled modules. And right in Klipsch's own literature, they're like, yeah, you can also just mount these on the sidewall and use them as surrounds. Like, it's totally fine.
Yeah, so, don't buy all that crap. It's just a speaker. It's just a speaker. That's all it is.
I mean, even if it has a slightly wonky frequency response inherently, if that's the way they built it on purpose, I mean, again, as overhead speaker, it's not playing a ton of content regardless. And then Odyssey, as you've set them as top middles, is going to attempt to correct their frequency response to make it flat best as it can. And most of all, you heard it for yourself and you're like, it sounds better this way regardless. So that's really the answer.
That's the answer. That's right. I am.
What's going on?
Nothing. I'm just unsubscribing from some spam thing that keeps coming through. I've gotten three since I've sat here. Christian bought a calibrated UMic 1 measurement microphone from Cross Spectrum Labs. Oof. And he got it set up with Room EQ Wizard. He has dual SVS PB1000 subs, but his room is irregularly shaped, so he was wanting to try measuring and adjusting the phase of just one of his subwoofers, trying to get the most uniform bass possible across his 3 seats. As it turns out, his first go around, he was mistakenly adjusting the wrong knob on a subwoofer. So his first set of measurements clearly don't show the sort of difference he was looking for. Which knob? Was it the volume knob?
I believe he was adjusting the crossover knob instead of the phase knob.
Okay, not the phase knob.
There are too many knobs on the backs of those things. No.
But regardless, he found the process of taking multiple measurements in multiple seats pretty darn time-consuming. We know that's why we don't suggest people do it. And it started to get kind of boring after a while, like after 5 minutes. Yes, I know. Is it really just a process of taking a seemingly infinite number of measurements? You measure, turn the knob a little bit, measure again, keep turning the knob and measuring over and over again. And then after having done that a gazillion times for just one seat, you have to repeat the entire process again and again, two other seats too. Yeah, that's kind of how it works, too.
Yup. That's why I tried to warn people that it is if you cannot, so if you do not have a rectangular room, if you do not have a rectangular room, and or you cannot place your subwoofers optimally within a rectangular room, you're kind of stuck doing this trial and error, tedious, painstaking process.
And this is why we sometimes say in rooms like this, if you don't really care about the other seats, you're just better off.
You get one seat working well.
Get the one sub, the one seat working well.
But he says, like, he himself sits in 2 out of these 3 seats. He'll switch positions, and so he does
2 measurements with Odyssey and just let Odyssey fight it out.
Do it as best it can. But yeah, this is the process, unfortunately. Particularly with 2, if you had 3 or 4 subs, you could try using that multi-sub optimizer software, which essentially still requires you to take all the measurements, but it does the number crunching itself rather than you manually looking through all your measurements, looking for the measurements of the 3 seats where one phase knob position across all 3 seats resulted in uniform bass, because that's a whole level of analysis you haven't even got to yet, and that's going to be a time-consuming thing too. So if you had 3 or 4 subs, you could use the multi-sub optimizer software. It says you can try to use it with 2 subs, but it really can't do what it's designed to do with only 2 subs. It's honestly meant for 4. That's what the multi-sub optimizer software was meant for. So yeah, sorry, man. It's a tedious, time-consuming process. That it is what it is, and you've got it exactly right. That is what you have to do.
The subwoofer cable going to one of his subs to be picking up a bit of a hum. It is running right next to his cable TV coax cable. And if he separates them, the hum in his subwoofer goes away. What subwoofer cable would you recommend to mitigate this? It's really kind of unusual for this to be picked up. The 2 ways that you can try to mitigate this are making sure that you got a subwoofer cable that's well shielded,
yes,
and making sure you have a coax, whatever the cable you've got from going to your cable TV box is also well shielded, or don't run them parallel. You're gonna have to have them cross at a right angle and then go in different
They
directions.
might just have to, though.
That might be the case, but just well shielding. So what would be a good example? Just about anything sold by Blue Jeans Cable.
Yeah, Blue Jeans. If you really want to be sure, you go Blue Jeans, because that's broadcast quality cable. That's the stuff that can run 300 feet without picking up interference.
They are a little, they used to be cheap.
Yeah.
They are expensive, but they are not. They're expensive because they are the best. Not like MIT cables or some of this other garbage out there.
Or Monster Cable or
physically
something.
use the best cables, the best methods. They're overbuilt. Like if you want to buy an HDMI cable and you're like, I don't know what HDMI 4.0 is going to look like, but I want to try to be ready for it.
Yeah.
Buy a cable from Blue Jeans Cable, because at the very least, it will not be the worst cable you have ever bought. It'll be the best one you could have bought at the time. So,
but before you do that, I'm going to suggest you try something that's going to sound super silly, but it's ridiculous how many times this works. Right now, the end of the subwoofer cable that's plugged into your subwoofer, unplug it from the subwoofer and plug that end into your AV receiver. Then take the end that was plugged into your AV receiver and plug it into your subwoofer. Because there are a ton of RCA cables out there where they only connect the shield at one end. And they do that because if you have a ground loop problem, that'll exacerbate it, as having the shield properly connected at both ends of the cable. So a lot of cables are built with the shield only at one end of the cable, which means it's only effective on the grounded device. That's the only side that's going to be effective, because the other one doesn't have an electrical connection to get the noise into ground, which is what the shield is doing, is just shunting the noise into the ground. So if it isn't on the grounded device, it doesn't work if it's not connected properly. So yeah, that's free. So before you go buying a cable, just try flipping it the other way. Sometimes it works.
Right. So after playing a bit with RoomIQ Wizard, he rewound Wipeow. He did things a little bit differently than his previous Wipeow setup, in that he used a large box to get the Wipeow microphone closer to his seated ear level. The trim levels and distances all came out weird. So what should he do? And could his old setup have been way off too, the way these new measurements seem to be? It keeps setting his subwoofer trim level to minus 10 dB, but clearly doesn't sound right to his ears at that setting. Well, you set it on top of a large box, which can resonate and can also reflect sound as it bounces off of it. So yeah, I think the large box was probably an issue here.
Yep.
Do you not have a stand?
A tripod.
Sort? Well, that's what I'm thinking, like a tripod for your camera, or a anything. Because most of them will attach to your tripod. In fact, the camera I'm using right now, which is a camera for your computer, has a little screw at the bottom that will go into a tripod. So I gotta believe that whatever you're using also can.
I would highly recommend you, because you can get some cheap ones, like from any music store, is get a microphone stand with a boom.
Yeah,
because then you're gonna use that microphone stand with a boom for your calibrated UMic 1 with RoomIQ Wizard when you're taking all those measurements. Because I don't know what you're using right now, but a mic stand with a boom is like indispensable if you want to move from seat to seat and get that microphone positioned where you want it to be. Mic stand with a boom, that eliminates all extraneous noises that might be picked up, because it's just holding it out there on a stick. Invest in one of those, because you can pick them up for I've seen some for like $12.
Yeah.
And given that you're not holding a heavy microphone of any sort, totally fine for holding your Wipeow and holding your UMic 1. So yeah.
So he'd like to make his next equipment upgrade now. Okay, so buy a microphone stand.
Buy a mic stand.
Done. Let's go.
Maybe a Blue Jeans cable.
He's got, you might be done after that, depending on how long that cable is supposed to be. He's got a Panasonic TC P50C2, whatever, plasma TV, 720p to plasma TV. Yamaha HTR 3065 5.1 receiver, PS4, Vero 4K, set-top box running Kodi, dual SVS PB1000s, RBH Impression Series bookshelf fronts, and the big center. Yamaha HD home theater box surrounds, Harmony remote. His first thought was to move his bookshelf speakers to surround duty and upgrade to the new RBH tower as soon as they're available. What do we think should be his next upgrade? Receiver? I'm gonna go with receiver.
I mean, I wouldn't object to that speaker purchase.
I wouldn't either. I'd be honest with you. I'm okay with that, but I kind of feel like receiver is there, and you've got a 720p plasma, which I like too. But I know it's hard to get rid of those plasmas.
Yep.
But there's you're now 1080p to 4K. Now I don't know if you want 4K, you might not.
I mean, I
But
would kind of wait because I mean he's not looking for super high price stuff. So
clearly, yeah.
I'm not gonna tell you go get an OLED or something like that.
No,
Although
no.
if you do, you'll be really happy with it. But I would wait just a little bit for the new TCL 6 series to come out because I think that is going to be a killer value.
Right.
I really do. Based on last year's P6 series, the new 6 series that's replacing it, it's coming out. It's supposed to be like end of April, beginning of May.
That's
So
giving him a lot of streaming options too. But he's already
because it's got Roku built in. So I mean, it's not very far away. So that I would seriously give consideration to, because your TV and receiver, both of those are things that you could upgrade now and get some really good value out of. So
yeah, you got some options here. I think
do.
the TV, the receiver, and the speakers all make sense.
Yep.
You could go for any of them, and I think you'll be happy, and you'll notice a difference. I mean, with the receiver, I don't know that you're notice as much.
Yeah, because you're still using 5 speakers in the 2 subs that you have.
Yeah, you're still going to be using the same stuff. So I would think that you would notice stuff in the feature sets.
Yeah.
You would notice stuff in maybe in the low end.
And also, if he does get the 4K HDR TV, he's going to need the new receiver to be able to pass through the 4K HDR signals because his current receiver won't pass them through. So they almost go hand in hand, the TV and receiver.
Right. Jack wrote to us previously regarding his currently unfinished basement with his kids playing Xbox downstairs. He can easily hear every sound coming from the TV while he's upstairs. So he's asking what he should do in terms of ceiling construction. He wants to have lots of in-ceiling can lights and in-ceiling Atmos speakers. So he figures he'll have about 20 holes in the ceiling. We suggested putting up insulation in regular drywall and then have a drop tile ceiling below that drywall. All the lights and speakers in the drop tile ceiling. That sounds like something you would say. Yep. But ceiling height is at a premium, and his wife really does not want any type drop tile ceiling. Surface mounting everything also is an option in terms of looks, or in terms of how it would effectively lower the ceiling height. How tall are all these people? I mean, how tall is this room?
I still don't know exactly, but it is a basement, so I very frequently basements have lower ceilings.
So maybe they're all ginormous. We said that if it was the case, and he really does need to put backer boxes behind all of his in-ceiling openings. So are there any pre-made backer boxes that we could recommend that would work both for speakers and can lights? It would be a lot of building otherwise, and he'd rather spend the money than the time, although not too much money. I know there are backer boxes that you can buy. I know that they exist.
I mean, one that's really easy is Dynamat. Dynamat makes, they're even retrofit, so you could finish the ceiling and then install the backer boxes later because it's a retrofit design, so it's kind of a collapsible, thick vinyl rubber, like you know what Dynamat makes. So it's that stuff. And so you can sort of roll it enough to fit into the saw hole that you make for your in-ceiling speaker. Or, of course, you can install it before you put the drywall up if this is new construction. And it's pretty darn effective. I mean, it muffles the speakers. Certainly much better than just the open back of the speaker firing into the empty, bay created by your ceiling joist. It's much better than that. You could use, so that's called the Dyna box, is the in-ceiling Dyna box. You could theoretically use that with a retrofit can light. You wouldn't want to use it with a non-retrofit can light, the type that requires a fire-rated box on the back of it. Because regular can lights are not allowed to touch any sort of insulation, and there's insulation inside the Dynabox. But if you get the retrofit can lights that are already self-contained and are meant to be installed in an already existing ceiling, you could do that. However, I think there's a much better solution for your lighting. There's actually a whole thread about it over on AVS Forum, because of course there is. But there's some really, really shallow, we're talking like, I think less than 2 inches. I think it was like 1.75 inches LED in-ceiling can lights, which basically if you have 2 layers of drywall, which you might want to do anyway because you're worried about soundproofing, and that isn't going to dramatically lower your ceiling height. They're so narrow, these LED in-ceiling lights, that they sort of sit flush with the first layer of drywall, and then the second layer of drywall above that can be continuous. And they can be in direct contact because they produce barely any heat, and all you need is the tiny little hole to let the electrical wire through. So instead of going with traditional can lights that would require the depth, why not go LED? Then you don't really have holes for your LEDs, and you put the Dyna boxes behind. He's only going to have 4 in-ceiling speakers, he said in his email. That's really not too bad. That's pretty darn reasonable. So I would look into that.
All right. One of the designers for DIY Sound Group lives near Vancouver. Since Rob is within driving distance, would Rob consider getting in touch to try out some of the speaker and or subwoofer designs, or maybe do an interview? Who is this? Who are these people? What do they do? They're DIY guys?
DIY. Yeah, they're one of the larger, popular, and they did the whole thing on AVS Forum. They started as like a group buy group, and then they're like, hey, we end up reordering the same things over and over, so why don't we just sell them? It's kind of how that worked out.
Okay.
So I won't say no. I also won't promise you yes, because it's just, honestly, I'm not that big of a DIY guy. I have no problem with it. I think it's a fun hobby for the people who are totally into it. It's just not really my particular bag.
I don't know that I would recommend you doing it, to be honest with you.
I mean, it's just a matter of time in that too.
There's time. I mean, and I believe me, I get all that. I'm not gonna argue with you about that, or really debate you about that. The reality here is that this is a passion. There's no good, and this is kind of like behind the scenes sort of thing. Like whenever we were doing reviews for Audioholics and stuff like that, there's always a discussion of, is this good for us? Is it good for them? We balance that out. All right. Somebody sends us a product and we want to review it, or if we look for a product to review, it's good for us because it gives us some exposure. It gives us something to do. Right. There's really no, you going out and doing this, where is the benefit for them? Because their listeners are not listening. Their people are generally not listening to us. Probably.
We don't
know. Our listeners may or may not be listening to them. And if you don't love it, it's going to start a humongous flame war.
That would be the problem.
Anything negative to say whatsoever, it's going to be an issue. And that's where I kind of draw the line right there. I'm like, listen, we don't need to be opening up this can of worms, because is it worth it? Where's the payoff? The payoff is what we get maybe a little slightly bump in traffic or something like that, or we set the AVS forums on flames, which honestly I wouldn't mind that much, because hey, they got it coming. But I just don't see enough good to come out of this for you to even do it. I think it's a fine suggestion. I got no problems with you.
Like I say, I'm not going to say no out of hand. I mean, it's not that it doesn't interest me at all. It's just I'm not going to promise that it will happen. What I will say is, on paper, looking at the designs of the things they sell, it all looks very reasonable. It all looks like very reasonable, tried and tested designs. I have no reason to think that it would be bad in any way. It looks like completely tried and true and tested designs that make sense. So
if somebody on the DIY with the sound group or whomever they are, what they wanted to come on the podcast and talk about their stuff, I'd be happy to have them on the podcast for that. But to send Rob out there to go listen to some stuff and give us his opinions, I'm like, oh, I don't know, dude. There's really not a lot that's going to be good for them or for us that comes out of that. Anything less than an absolutely my mind was blown, I am throwing away my current speakers, is going to be considered a slap in the face. I don't want to go down that path. Bobby, here we go. So as a reminder, Bobby's room is 12 by 12. Not inches, but feet, with Klipsch reference series speakers all around, which means he says what a lot because he can't hear. On our advice, he was going to go with outdoor speaker depot in-ceiling speakers for his 4 Atmos positions, but his wife went ahead and bought him one more pair of Klipsch R14M compact bookshelf speakers, and he's able to make them work as top middles by installing them on shelves high up on the side walls. He still needs front heights to complete a setup, though, and he'd like them to be 5 feet in front of his seats, so that definitely means on the ceiling. There's no way to mount them near a wall with that positioning. Should he still go with the outdoor depot in-ceiling speakers? He feels a bit weird to have only one pair of speakers that aren't Klipsch, but the Klipsch in-ceiling speakers are way too expensive. He could maybe go for a half moon shape Klipsch R14S that are meant to be used as on-wall surrounds, but they still look a bit big and weird mounted on the ceiling. Any thoughts? What these R14Ms? How big are those? Those are not too big.
I mean, they're bookshelf speakers with like the 4-inch woofer, you know, so it's the little
huge.
one, but it's a bookshelf speaker.
I think you just wait until your wife buys you some more Klipsch speakers. I mean, clearly that's the most. Just wait her out. Just draw a little circle on the ceiling, like the 2 little circles on the ceiling, with a little note that says "Klipsch speakers go here," and just wait for her to get them. That's what I would do. I mean, I don't think you need any of these speakers, to be honest with you. I gotta be honest with you. You're sitting so close to them. They're Klipsch, they're reference series, and I'm sure you love them. And that's why I say just pony up the money for the ones that you want. I don't think you should put the surround speakers up there, because those are probably dipoles or some nonsense like that. And you don't need that. I would put a direct firing bookshelf, the smallest Klipsch bookshelf thingy you can find, and just get us a
But see, then I'm worried that you're going to end up with like a pair of quintets or the Icon series or something that sounds awful, because the really cheap stuff they make, I know likey. So it is going to end up being like something out of the reference series, which will look kind of big mounted to your ceiling. There's no way around that. Or, I mean, the thing is, there is no point going for Klipsch in ceiling speakers, because they do not resemble any of their other speakers in any way.
Right.
They're not horn loaded. They don't even use the same materials half the time. So it's like there's no point in paying the extra money for that. So if it's going to be in ceiling, get the outdoor speaker depot ones. They'll be fine. They're still 92 dB efficient, so they're not quite as efficient as your Klipsch, but they're not way off to the point that it'll be a problem for your AV receiver. So if you want in ceiling, just get the outdoor speaker depot ones, man. They're affordable. They'll still sound great. As front heights, you're never going to notice the timbre mismatch. So,
and just think, I mean, if comes down to it, you can take those other Klipsch speakers and put them in your office.
That's right.
Put them someplace else, and then get more outdoor
get 4 of the outdoor speaker depot ones and reposition the.
I think I would do that anyways. To be honest
you might. Because that's what he wanted originally anyway. Was 4 in-ceiling speakers ideally positioned.
If you're going to cut 2 holes in your ceiling, you might as well cut 4, because the first one's going to be hard. The second one's going to be a little bit easier, but the fourth one you're going to have it down.
Yep.
So you might as well just go ahead and do all 4. That's what I would do.
All right.
Take those Klipsch speakers, get rid of them.
Spending this guy's money.
They don't cost that much. It's like $60, aren't they?
Not too bad.
Yeah. Wesley is currently using 5 Polk speakers, and he's interested in upgrade. Well, I got an idea for you. His room is small, being one room in an apartment that's about 700 square feet total. That's a whole apartment of 700 square feet.
That's correct. Yes.
Wow. And he has some hearing loss, so he doesn't hear too much above about 8,000 hertz or 8 kilohertz. So he remembers liking some Klipsch speakers he heard, but that was decades ago now. Maybe that's why you can't hear above 8 kilohertz.
Oh, come on. One time.
One time. Wow. Come on, dude. Taking the low-hanging fruit.
Yep.
Not even trying. So he wants to order some speakers that can be delivered to him. Should you just go for some modern Klipsch speakers, or what we suggest you do? I would suggest you go with headphones. That being said, an apartment this small, I would totally go for headphones. I mean, consider the amount of fidelity you can get. Even if you can't hear above 8 kilohertz, the amount of overall fidelity you can get from headphones, where you could play it at a volume level that would absolutely get you thrown out of this place. That being said, no, I don't think you need to go for Klipsch speakers. You are going to be in a very small room. I would go for something like the Focal little birds, like the tiny ones, or the NHT.
Yeah, I was thinking
Super
NHT.
Zeros,
yeah,
would be good ones too. Something small but has the ability to play with decent fidelity, and also will play nice with subwoofers. Easy placement, easy to move, easy to mount. It just, everything would be easy about these guys, because that's what you need. Because I imagine this is not going to be your final resting place. You're not going to spend the rest of your life in the 700 square foot place. So I'm not worried about your hearing loss. We've all got it, some level of it. At some point, we've got some hearing loss. It's okay. So don't worry about that. Let's put it this way: if the speakers give you 100% of what sound is supposed to sound like, the fact that you can't hear part of it will sound normal to you. Okay. What you don't want is some speaker that's you're like, okay, well, I spent less on this speaker because it drops off at 10 kilohertz. Well, it's also got other issues that, the most egregious of which was that it drops off at 10 kilohertz or 8 kilohertz. Therefore, people don't want it for that. But they didn't tell you was that the frequency response is all over the place and everything else. Get some decent speakers.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, a couple others you could try. SVS Prime.
Sure.
Because those are free to try. They'll pay the shipping both ways, so
Right.
why not? And then another one, since, maybe you're just like, I want me some horn-loaded speakers, HSU. HSU would be a good option to try out because they're
it's not
HP1s.
blind. He's deaf. I mean, these kids can see them. They're ugly.
HP1s aren't that bad.
Big, ugly black boxes. Yes, they are.
You can get them in the rosewood finish.
Okay.
They're not too.
Whatever.
I like the HSUs. So there's 4 good options for you. None of them are gigantic. All of them sound good. All of them can be ordered and sent directly to your house. So Focal, the Bird series, NHT's Super Series, SVS Prime series, and HSU's HB1 series. There you go.
I mean, he can tell us how much money he had to spend either. And he wants a full system? Is he looking for a full
5
system?
speakers, yeah.
5 speakers.
But all of these are good value, high value choices.
Yeah.
So.
Is there a KEF model that would fit in this?
Yeah, I mean, the new Q series is kind of pricey. I gotta be honest.
Yeah. Right.
They're good, but kind of pricey.
Earl would like to upgrade his Mirage BP S400 sub. His living room is open to his kitchen and dining room, so he's dealing with about 4,000 cubic feet total. He's considering dual SVS SB16 Ultras since they would physically fit. He really only has 2 locations where the subwoofers could go. His front right corner next to his TV, where his Mirage subwoofer is now, and his left wall beside his main couch, where he has an end table right now. SVS's Merlin recommended SB13 Ultras, but that seems to have been solely based on which speakers he has, not his room size. Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
That's totally how they do that. Merlin is completely useless. And SVS, I'm sorry, but that's true. So what model do we think is the right choice? And given his limited placement options, will he still be able to get good results with dual subs? There is no way we can know that second question. We don't know.
Although they have the fully variable phase. If you're willing to put the time in, like we were talking about with Christian.
Let's be honest, dude. You're not gonna, because almost no one will do it. And the people who are doing it get like 5 minutes in to go, man, this sucks. It's terrible having to go through this. But until we get some sort of automated way to do it for us, we're stuck with it. So this is what I would do. He's thinking about the 16 SB.
The 16 Ultra. So the sealed 16 Ultra is the biggest. And one really nice feature of those is they have the app control. So if you are going to do the going through the tedium of adjusting the phase really slowly, it's a little bit easier because at least you don't have to reach behind the sub and turn a knob. You can do it on the app from your seat. So that's nice. You could also do that with the SB4000, which, so you said Merlin recommended the SB13 Ultra. The SB13 Ultra has now been replaced in the lineup by the SB4000, and the 4000 series got all the nice app features and front-mounted controls of the 16 Ultra series. So the SB4000 might be an option here. 4,000 cubic feet. Do we want to go 4000 series or 16 Ultra? What do you say?
I'm kind of looking at that end table, thinking to myself,
okay.
Is that as big as a SB16 Ultra?
It kind of is.
Yeah.
The 16 Ultra, even though it's sealed, is not small.
I'm looking at this room and I'm thinking to myself, there is one seat in this room that is important.
That's his seat.
That is his seat.
Yeah.
Do we need 2 subwoofers in this space?
Yes, we do. Yes.
I don't necessarily agree with that.
Maybe he cares about the other seats.
Why would he sit them in that position? Who sits there? Who sits there and looks over the left or the right shoulder the entire time they're watching the movie? No one does that.
Maybe somebody lies down on the couch and faces forward. Could happen.
All right.
The question is 4,000s or 16 Ultras? 4,000 cubic feet.
4,000 cubic feet. I feel like you can get away with the 4,000s.
I really do too.
I mean, I don't think he needs the 16s, but I don't think you want to fully pressurize the space anyways, because I think those lamps will shatter. There's a lot of lampage, a lot of glass lampage going on in here.
Yeah, no, 4,000 cubic feet is squarely in the large but not massive room size.
Yes.
The 4,000s are the way to go here. SB 4,000s, we just saved you a little bit of money, and I think you'll be really, really happy with those.
Yeah, I kind of feel like he's just go with the one right next to a seat. To use the end table one there and just get that one cranking and not worry about anybody else's seats. Carl, back at CES and now again at Mobile World Conference.
Mm-hmm.
That's a thing. THX is showing off their THX spatial audio platform. It's an end-to-end program that involves recording directional audio, encoding it as MPEG-H, object-based or ambisonic audio, playing it back via an app or a new decoder, and being able to optimize the playback experience for each individual user. It can be used either with headphones or just a pair of stereo speakers. And perhaps most interestingly, they've developed a method whereby the user takes a picture of their head and ears, sends that off to an artificial intelligence program, and the AI figures out their unique head-related transfer function in about a minute. By taking a picture of my ear.
That's the claim.
That's a pretty good AI. That's taken over the world, that one right there. Demos include some movie trailers and 2-channel content that's been programmed in this new format, and they were apparently quite impressive, both through the headphones, Oppo PM3s, and through a small pair of speakers. What are our thoughts? I thought so. That sounds like BS. I'll be honest with you.
They weren't showing the take a picture and send it off to the AI in any of the demos because it ain't working yet.
That doesn't sound like. Now, the rest of it I like. I mean, I like.
Sure. Well,
I like this.
I don't like that it's another format. I mean, really? And now, to be fair, they did say you could use legacy content with it. That they have essentially a renderer is part of the program,
right, sure.
But it would mean at the very least, I mean, they were at Mobile World Conference. They were talking to Qualcomm, so it's pretty clear they're aiming this at mobile devices.
Mobile devices, sure.
Which makes sense. I mean, that's where you're going to be using your headphones.
Yeah.
Or sending it via Bluetooth to a stereo pair of speakers or something, right? That totally makes sense.
Another DSP or another decoder on my receiver, I'm okay with this.
Yeah.
If it's trying to come up with a new format, I think that's ridiculous. That we don't necessarily need that.
I don't buy the take a picture of your ear head related transfer function thing for a second. I don't buy it.
It's good to hold like a quarter next to your head for reference. You know how big everything is. I mean, how is that even going to work? It's stupid.
But I mean, THX, DTS, Dolby, they've all been working on this headphone spatialization type of stuff. All of them continue to improve as processing power in your mobile devices only keeps going up and up. It all continues to improve. There's no doubt that you put on the headphones and you turn on their program and it makes it sound like it's more outside of your head. Absolutely. We know that can be done. I kind of wish one of these gigantic companies would just buy up Smith, because clearly that's what Smith is waiting for, because they have not released that A16 yet, and it's been a minute. They're waiting to get bought up. I kind of wish someone would, because they do it fantastically. But they do the head-related transfer function the only way that actually makes sense was they put microphones in your ears, and then they play sounds through your headphones into those microphones and adjust the whole thing to work. That's how you actually do it, not taking a photo. But there you go. That's my thought.
Shane in New Zealand. Shane went to make some DIY absorptive panels, but he's having a heck of a time finding necessary installation in New Zealand. He's contacted one of the biggest installation providers, and they suggested Autex quiet space panels, which are big 4-foot by 8-foot semi-rigid panels that appear to be meant just to mount directly to a wall without any sort of frame or anything. He could easily cut the panels to whatever size he wants. He just can't believe that this is the only option for DIY panels. Given how much would it cost to pay Gick to ship panels to him, this Autex option is somewhat of a fair price, but still more expensive than a DIY solution ought to be. Any suggestions or ideas? I'm clicking on this thing because I got to see this massive thing.
So I was looking through and I found, so we've mentioned brands like Owens Corning or Roxel, because those are brands that are easily found in North America.
Sure.
But yeah, I didn't see mention of those brands in New Zealand, but they did have a company that was selling rock wool insulation. And that's what Roxel is. Roxel is just a brand name of rock wool insulation. You must have home improvement stores in New Zealand.
They do. It's called Bunnings is what's in Australia.
So but I mean, one of them must sell rock wool insulation. It doesn't have to be Roxel. That's just a brand. That's like saying you can't buy facial tissue that isn't branded Kleenex. Like, no, it doesn't matter. The brand.
I know, but rigid fiberglass boards of any kind or rock wool boards of any kind have always been hard to find at home improvement stores. I've never been able to find them here in the States. No, you can't. You can't find that.
Oh man,
I always had to go straight to a manufacturer or a
really?
distributor.
I mean, Roxol's everywhere in Canada, so it's weird.
No,
We like our insulation. It's cold here.
that surely has something to do with it. Yes,
but I found at least 2 rock wool insulation companies in New Zealand. Yep. So there must be a way to get that stuff. It shouldn't be ridiculous. I mean, it's just rock wool. Can't be crazy expensive. And honestly, you could use the super cheap pink stuff, yellow stuff, white stuff. You can use that. It's just that
it's hard to work with.
Yeah, it sags. That's the only issue. You could put in a little, like you could make your frame, your stick frame that you're going to have, and you could just put in a little bit of webbing to hold the fluffy stuff in place. It's a little bit more work to put in some webbing, but you could do it that way. As far as how effective it is, no difference. It's just the rock wool insulation or the semi-rigid fiberglass is a little easier to work with. That's all, because it doesn't sag.
Right.
It's not a performance thing. It's just ease of use.
So it says insulation is available in different thicknesses, of course. Mostly there are 50 millimeter, about 2 inches, and 100 millimeter, which is about 4 inches options. Same thing here. Should he get the 100 millimeter stuff and just mount it directly to the wall, or should he get the 50 millimeter stuff and either use a frame or spacers and put an air gap behind it? Can you put an air gap behind the 100 millimeter stuff? Because that's
well, then it gets thicker than 4 inches total, though, doesn't it?
That is true, but that's okay.
He's aiming for about 4 inches off.
Oh, he wants 4. Okay, so 2 inches with a 2 inch gap and a 4 inches directly on the wall is exactly the same.
Yeah, I mean, we can't say exactly, but very close to exactly the same.
It is noticeably basically the same.
Yeah.
So they measure almost identically. So the cheaper option almost always is do 2 inches and then put a 2 inch air gap behind it.
I mean, it's fairly simple. If you end up getting this Autex stuff that isn't meant to be put in any sort of a frame, it's just meant to be put on the wall, well, get the 4 inch thick stuff then.
Yeah,
stick it to the wall. Done. If you can get some cheaper insulation and make your own cheap DIY frame, get the 2 inch stuff because it's going to be cheaper. It's going to be lighter. You put it in a 4 inch deep frame with a 2 inch air gap behind it, and there you go.
So I scrolled back up because I thought I got the wrong guy. Mark. This is a different Mark, I think. I feel like we've already done a Mark. I feel like we did a Mark.
We know multiple Marks.
This is a Mark M.
Yes.
I don't know. Probably Marin. Probably that podcast guy. I think it's probably him. I believe it in my soul.
Could be.
Mark wants to pick up a small 32-inch, inexpensive, under $150 TV, but he still liked the picture to be as good quality as possible. He isn't concerned. Didn't we answer this question already?
Nope.
Are you sure?
Not today.
Not today, but I mean, I thought we did this one last week. We didn't talk about this last week?
Nope. Not last week.
He isn't concerned about resolution or HDR. He was just going to get the TCL 32S5 305, but he just wanted to double check that there isn't some way to get at the same price for the same price that he's overlooking or got announced at CES and will come out soon. Can we give him the go ahead? 32-inch, inexpensive, under $150 TV, and he wants a good picture.
Yeah, I'd get that very TCL that you mentioned, the 32S 305.
I mean, the only other thing I would look at, I mean, what are you connecting this to? I mean, do you need it to have a tuner on it or whatever? Because if you do, then you need the actual TV. But if you don't, then there's probably plenty of high quality computer monitors that you could also be looking at.
But for under $150,
that would be tough. But I'm not saying it's not possible. That's the only other thing. I mean, don't get locked into I have to go to Best Buy and look at the wall of TVs to find the one that I want. There's other options that are out there. That's
I mean, according to ratings.com, their review, they're like, it's actually a surprisingly good TV for how cheap it is.
Right.
They're like, it's honestly a pretty decent little TV. Now, it isn't HDR, it isn't 4K, but it's also $150. So,
it's 32 inches with 4K. Come on.
Yeah, dude. That's right. He's really not complaining. So, the only thing I would mention, and we were talking last time about a 24-inch TV and getting a monitor because that person did want HDR. That was with Lee.
That must have been
what it was. So that's where the whole display HDR thing from Visa,
right?
ESA, they've come up with this display HDR 400, 600, and 1000 categories for computer monitors.
Right.
But they start at about $400 and go up from there. So those aren't really an option for this, and that TCL is a great choice for this type of thing.
Infinite Gary. Gary watched a stereophile YouTube video of a tour of the PS Audio Factory. For those of you who have never heard of PS Audio, it's because you don't have enough money to hear of PS Audio because they are super expensive. Their gear is quite sexy, though. Like, I mean,
Sure.
their stuff is quite sexy to look at. I would like to look at it in my house and have it be in my house. I don't know that I necessarily would plug it into anything. They have a listening room with a pair of line array speakers set up. Near the end of the video, they spend some time talking about the room itself and the rather small amount of acoustical treatments they've installed. They also talk a bit about the bass response at the listening position. There's a moment where Paul McGowan, the CEO of PS Audio, known for his ability to shoot straight and no BS, as all audiophile manufacturers of high-end audio,
there's a decent chance he believes it.
Claps his hands to demonstrate how they reduce the slap echo in the room. But between that clap and the way their voices sound in the video, Gary thinks it sounds pretty darn reverberant.
There is a pretty clear echo of the clap when he makes it. It is not a dead clap like you would get in anything close to an anechoic chamber. It echoes in there.
All right. I mean,
this is a
sounds pretty good in here.
Bare walled bedroom. Mine's gonna clap. You can.
You can hear. Yeah. No. Let me do it again. This is my theater. So I mean, this is what. I mean, are you hearing anything? No. Yeah, I'm not hearing anything either. All right. I mean, maybe
versus mine.
Yeah.
Zing. So they didn't have the telltale zing in the room. They did get rid of that, but there was kind of clearly an echo of the clap. It's kind of funny.
So Gary says in his theater, with all its acoustic treatments and diffusion panels, it's really quiet and not reverberant at all. But the PS Audio guys was saying how a lot of treatments aren't necessary. Of course he is. And focus much more on having angled all the corners.
Mm-hmm.
Angled all the corners, and seems really pleased with their demo room. So what do we think? Do we think that things seem pretty reverberant in their video? Is that honestly a good room for audio playback, or should it be a lot quieter and less echoey? Everything you said is true. Yes, it is not good. Do we think? No. Okay.
Look, all you need to know about PS Audio is they sell 3 different aftermarket power cords. I think the cheapest one is $3,000. And they're like, this is our 3rd best sounding power cord. I'm done.
Yeah. Well, okay. So
there's nothing else to know about
them. They a lot of times these people believe their stuff. I mean,
sure.
I've been in rooms with people, and this is one of the reasons we were talking earlier about sending Rob over to the DIY guys. I mean, he's gonna get in a room with these people, and they're gonna start talking to him about the stuff that they believe. You know, and Rob's gonna be like,
we don't know that for sure. We don't know.
Okay. And what they believe might be the truth.
Oh, sure.
Might absolutely be scientific fact, and they're supporting it with evidence and everything else. Or it might be this guy clapping in a clearly reverberant room saying, listen to how dead it is. And everybody's like,
well, he was saying he got rid of a slap echo, which they didn't have the zing sound to it, so okay. But no, they're using these line array speakers where they're almost electrostatic at that point. They're dipole as well.
Right.
So, I mean, they got the one good seat, and then it was hilarious because he's like, at this seat, you're actually in both a null and a hump in the bass response, but it's pleasing. I'm like, just go away. Because, I mean, of course, they have these stacks. I think it's 12-inch drivers on either side, but of course, they're positioned where the front speakers are because you couldn't just position them optimally to actually get good. You could. You have 2 of them. You could do it in this room. It'd be no problem. But no, they must go where the front speakers are because phase. And yet you have a cancellation. You just said yourself you have a null. So what's all your stupid phase about now? No, ridiculous stuff.
Yeah.
Silly.
They're catering to a specific crew. To a specific client who believes the thing they believe in, and you can see it. I mean, every once in a while, I take a trip down the rabbit hole.
It was Stereophile making the video. Of course, this is the way they're going to be.
Yeah. Their clientele is 2-channel, big speakers, super expensive, don't need room treatments.
Yep.
That's essentially it. Why? Because I can sell you big speakers, but I can't sell you room treatments, and room treatments honestly don't sell. Therefore, you don't need them because my speakers don't need them.
He was showing their $32,000 turntable where they had taken the cartridge off because he said people kept walking by it and brushing the needle with their sleeve, and they kept ruining $3,000 cartridges. I'm like, oh, well then, super convenient, isn't it? God.
So Gary asks, when it comes to ceiling height, what is actually best? Are there any advantages to a lower ceiling? I mean, okay, so if you're talking about what is best, I guess if you're looking for making sure that your room sounds as is as acoustically, if you could float yourself into a formless void, so the sound never reflected off of anything, that would be best. So no ceiling would be best, I think, but you'd have to have no walls and no floor as well.
Yeah,
it's not optimal.
There
I'm
really
not gonna say it's optimal.
Yeah, there really isn't any advantage to a lower ceiling.
I don't think there's any advantage to any specific. I mean, you're just basically changing the bounce. Is all you're doing. You're just changing the bounce.
When the ceiling is lower, it means that the time between the direct sound and the reflected sound is shorter.
Right.
And the shorter it is, the harder the time our brain has telling them apart. Because if the delay is long enough, well, if it's super long, you get an outright echo. But if it's long enough, our brain is actually pretty darn good at filtering out reflected sound if the delay between direct and reflected is just long enough for our brain to be able to say, that's a reflected sound. I kind of know to ignore that. Our brain's pretty good at that. When you reduce that time, it starts merging the sounds together and it just smears the sound. So the lower you make your ceiling, the quicker the reflection is going to get there relative to the direct sound. It's not an advantage really in any way.
Yeah.
Cheaper to build.
Both AV Forums and Audioholics posted YouTube videos where they talk a bit about the Emotiva RMC1 9.1.6 Pre-Pro, and both mention how Dan Loftman himself said that RMC1 should be launching around April of this year. Should we start getting excited? After all, it could do 2 more speakers than Marantz AV8805. I am not getting excited until I actually see it. I'm sorry.
I will believe it when I see it. And I won't even believe it when they start taking orders, because there was the one that they started taking orders, and then 3 years after they took the money, they shipped it.
Yeah.
No, when it comes to processors, I don't believe. And I mean, Dan Loftman, it was coming out last summer, then it was coming out last fall, then it was coming out last winter, then it was coming out this spring. Like it never ends. It just where is the XMC1 Atmos update? Where is it? Where? Forget it.
So with the DRAC Room live correction system in the Emotiva Pre-Pro, do you need a laptop or do you just connect the measurement microphone directly to the Pre-Pro like how the Odyssey system works? I don't actually know.
You needs a laptop.
Oh, there you go. Does that
not only that,
Windows?
I'm not sure if it's Windows or Mac. I think it's either. But your laptop and the Emotiva both must be connected to the same network, because that's actually how they share the information back and forth. Yeah, there's no direct connection. It's through your network, and the microphone gets connected to your laptop. That's how it works. And you have to have an internet connection too, because all the number crunching is done by DRAC servers.
Right. I'm trying to see if I can figure this out real quick.
You need quite a bit. You need a laptop, internet connection, and your laptop and the Emotiva bus both be connected to the same network to share the data.
Try to find the manual to read that. All right, Corey. Corey's room is 25 by 15, but he's using half that space as his theater and half as his home gym. It's around 3,500 cubic feet total. He built a 16 by 15 by 19-inch DIY subwoofer with an Earthquake Magma 12-inch driver and a 12-inch passive radiator. He's powering it with a NAD 2200 amplifier. The NAD is rated at 2 by 200 watts into 4 ohms, but it can be bridged, which is the way he's using it. He could spend about $1,000 max to get the second subwoofer, and he's wondering what would be the most effective way to spend his money. First of all, does he really need a second subwoofer? Yes. And second, should he just build another identical enclosure and use the NAD amplifier stereo outputs to power both of the subs, or should he pair what he has with something different, or scrap what he has altogether and get 2 totally new subs? Well, first of all, I have no idea what his sub sounds like.
Yeah, I don't know what it sounds like. I mean, usually the Earthquake subs are found in cars. That's their
but that's just a driver, right? I mean,
it's just a driver.
I mean,
no reason it can't work.
Yes. Yeah. Though, I mean, when your goal is to fill up an Escalade, your driver specifications are slightly different when you're trying to fill up 3,500 cubic feet.
Yeah, but again, 3,500 cubic feet is a large room, but not a massive room. So you don't have to go nuts with this.
I don't like the idea of you trying to power 2 subs with 200 watts each.
By a 2x200 watt, I'm not a fan of that either.
I don't think that that's going to be good. If you're going to go the DIY route, I think you need to buy a separate amp for your second sub.
Yeah.
Now, I'm okay with you going that way.
Mm-hmm.
You've already got one sub. You're clearly happy with it. I don't want to tell you that you can't do another one. I think that's fine. If this is something that you're happy with, getting a second sub is always an advantage. Always. Yes, you will have to place them not across, diagonally opposite across your theater space, but diagonally across the entire space, or mirrored across the entire space, in order to get the benefit that we're talking about for your bass response. But if this DIY sub is something you're happy with, I'm perfectly fine. Now, if you're looking for suggestions for $1,000 for this space, I don't know that we can do 2 new subs for $1,000.
Yeah, for this size space, that would be a big ask. Yeah,
you were looking for maybe $1,800 to get 2 new subs for this space.
Oh, then quite easily.
Yeah, but I think that you could go with a PC 2000.
Yep,
would work here.
Yep, PC 2000. That's an $800 sub.
Which is under your price. And then what you can do, and SVS often does, is you say, I already bought one. I would like to buy a second one. Can I get the discount for buying the second one?
Yeah, and that's a big if, because the sub you already have, and then the sizes, looking at what that driver can do, using the bridged mode of your amplifier to power it, I completely agree. I would not separate that and try to power 2 of them with that 1 amp. If you're going to do DIY, get a second amplifier. But yeah, another nice option that I would like is Monolith from Monoprice.
They have their new subs. Right?
Yeah, they have their $800 one, which actually is about as close in physical size out of these $800-ish subs to the one you already have. So it's not going to look out of place. It's going to look similar to being a second one that you already have. It's also a 12-inch driver, like the 2000 series is from SVS. But, the form factor looks about the same. It's a similar size driver. Theirs is a ported design and yours is a passive radiator, but that's very similar. So that's actually a really good match. I think
he might have, his might still be all MDF for all we know.
It could be.
But this could look a lot nicer.
the 12-inch Monolith from Monoprice, because they do free shipping on their subs too. So it's $800.
Power Sound should probably have something for him too.
Oh yeah, Power Sound. I mean, they've got
a real bass head.
They got their 15V. That's just under $1,000, but it's bigger. It's considerably bigger than the sub you already have. So if you want something that looks like it matches, I really like that Monoprice for you.
Ping Pong Theater Ed. I don't remember. He had a ping pong table.
You always say that. He has a ping pong table in his theater.
Ed's basement theater room is. I'm getting very tired, so I'm certain that like I'm having a hard time reading.
But we're like we're not even halfway through.
We are halfway through. So you said there were 23 questions. I said there were 28 12.
In the thing, and there's actually 29.
Well, then we're halfway through. Shut up.
Yes.
Ed's. You can't do math. I'm tired. Ed's basement theater room is 12 by 28 by 7. He bought a single piece SVS PC 2000. I'm going to get this stuff out, I swear. And we told him not to pair it with his Boston Acoustics PV 700. Now he wants to get a second sub, but he doesn't want to spend another $800. Is there a cheaper subwoofer that would be a reasonably good match for his PC 2000? He's not opposed to the subwoofer kit that he would assemble himself. Well, we did say that just now that if you call SVS, you will not be paying $800. You'll say, I already bought one. Can I get the second one at the buy one, get one cheaper?
It's not
price.
A huge discount.
It's like $100.
Is it 100 or is it 50?
I at least 50. 100.
It's somewhere between 50 and $100 off. So somewhere between $700 and $750 for the second one. Yeah.
So I mean, $500 for. I mean, you're not going to save a huge amount of money here. Basically, you're going to save somewhere between $200 and $250 at the most. I think is what you can.
His room's not gigantic. I could point you to HSU's VTF2 Mark V quite comfortably.
Okay. Well, how much does that cost?
So it's $540 plus $68 shipping. So just over.
So you're over $600. So you're I
just
for extra $100 max. You're getting the same sub that you already have.
The exact same sub. Mm-hmm.
I don't know, dude.
Yeah, talk to SVS, see if they can give you a discount that's enough for you to pounce on it, because then you have 2 identical subs, and you can't be sad about that. But if
what about those Amazon 12 NSDs? Are those still around? Because if there's one of those
no,
around,
see, yeah, the PB 12 NSDs that were $500, they all gone. They're all gone. The SB 12 NSDs you can still find, but that wouldn't be a
really
perfect match with what he has. You want the ported.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you can get it at a discount, do that. Otherwise, the VTF2 Mark V is less expensive, and it would, in your room size, it would be completely fine.
Okay. He recently purchased a pair of ELAC Unify towers that replace his JBL speakers. He had JBLs had 95 dB sensitivity, while the ELACs are at 85 dB sensitive. He's using a Denon X1200 receiver, so it isn't super powerful, and it doesn't have pre-outs for adding an external amp. Should be worried about anything in terms of the quality of the sound, or is it as simple as increasing the trim level and maybe turning up the volume dial? You are sitting not 12 feet away from these speakers, from what I can gather here. It looks like you're sitting pretty close. I would not worry about this at all, and it's not going to be turning up the trim levels that much, though it could be. But
well, I mean, when you recalibrate, there's a decent chance that with your very efficient JBLs that you had before, the trim level was probably set at like -3 or -4 or something, and now it might be set at +4 or +5 or something like that. But it's still going to be well within the range of what the receiver can do.
Right, and then your volume dial probably should stay right about the same.
Yeah, after you recalibrate, it ought to be exactly the same.
You shouldn't see any differences there, and you shouldn't have any problems powering these speakers.
No, this should be fine. With your seating distance, should be fine. There can be scenarios where this would be a cause for concern, but not at your seating distance.
Not at your seating distance. I wouldn't worry about this at all. So he's come to realize that he spends more time tinkering with his home theater than actually watching content. He rarely makes it through an entire movie without stopping to adjust something. Are we the same way? Are we happy with our theaters, or are we always changing something? Is it possible we love the gear more than we love the actual content? Dude, I have long ago given up tinkering.
Haven't you said you've bugged your wife saying, I've got to fix this surround sound?
Well, yeah, that happens every once in a while. Yeah. But I mean, it's not impossible that it happens. The other day I gotta admit, we went to this when we went to Hollywood Studios. We went to the Frozen sing along.
Mm-hmm.
We made my 14-year-old son sitting there.
Nice.
Frozen sing along. I took pictures of him. He was so miserable. But I hadn't seen Frozen in so long. Last night we watched Frozen. So I took the disc, and it was just filthy with kids' fingerprints. I couldn't get it to work and stuff like that. Had to like run it under the water. I mean, it was really dirty. But stuff like that'll happen. But generally speaking, I don't tinker as much as I used to. I just don't. It's kind of gotten over it.
Yeah, I don't stop in the middle of a movie. I get things set. I will take time before the movie starts to make sure everything is there, because I want to get immersed in the movie and be taken away by the story. But I definitely love the gear more than the actual content. I will completely admit to that. The amount of time I've spent listening to test tones, it's ridiculous compared to the amount of time. I mean, I have spent more time watching actual content, but if you look to the percentages, people would think I'm absolutely nuts. So there's no question. I love the gear more than the content. Yeah, I'll admit to that.
I don't think I do. I think I like the content more, but I do love the gear quite a bit. It's close. It's like 49-51 sort of thing. So he recently restored a 44-year-old Nico amplifier and started using an old Technics turntable. He isn't turning into a vinyl guy, and if you did, I wouldn't really care. But he has noticed that many of the old recordings definitely seem to have more dynamic range than modern digital files. Do we have any interest ourselves in strictly 2-channel setup that's separate from our theaters? Any interest in vintage gear? I have definitely an interest in a dedicated 2-channel setup. I think I would be interested in that. This was what would happen. I would set up a nice 2-channel room, and then very quickly decide, what would make this room better? Some surround sound speakers. There you go. Better. I mean, that's what would really work is if we had a couple of subwoofers in here, and then some surrounds, and then maybe some more surrounds. That being said, I have often thought of that. I told there's been twice I've tried to set this up in houses where I've had a home theater and I've had 2-channel gear in another room. But what has completely wiped all that away is portable speakers. Portable speakers
right.
has killed my ability to convince my wife that a 2-channel setup someplace else in the house so that we can listen to music is something that we need, because now it's always just, there's always music in every room because they have speakers everywhere.
Well, I'm really happy with the 2-channel in my theater, so I don't have any desire or feel any need for a separate 2-channel setup. But what you're saying about some vinyl records, they sound better than the the current CD, or there's plenty of vinyl that was never even transferred to digital of any kind.
Right.
You can't get it any other way. I'm in complete agreement with that. I'm just not. I don't listen to music enough. Period. As a critical listening thing for me to consider it worth my while. And then I don't have an interest in building a vinyl collection in that. It's not what I want to do, but I completely agree that there's lots of vinyl that does sound better. It does have the greater dynamic range.
I spent almost no time in here listening to music. I mean, I spent almost no time in my theater listening to music.
But it's
all
a similar
my music
thing,
is done over Pandora, or it's all garbage. And I know it's garbage. It's over the radio. I know it's bad. But I'm not going to sit here and turn on some music. I'm just not going to. If I'm going to listen to music, I'm going to do it in the rest of the house with all the Bluetooth speakers everywhere and listen to it that way.
But it's similar on the vintage gear thing. I think it's cool, but I don't have a way to incorporate it into my life that would be really worth the money that I would spend on it. So yeah, it's not a priority for me at all.
All right, Lance. Lance has a room, and we're going to see a picture of this, that's approximately 25 feet long by 16 feet wide with a 7.5-foot ceiling. His front row of seats are 14 feet from the front wall, and he has a second row of seats on the riser. The floor-to-ceiling windows are on one side. He has floor-to-ceiling windows on one side, but he can control the light with blackout curtains. He's painted the front wall black and the ceiling flat black. Okay, whatever. While the rest of the walls are a flat, dark red finish. Very cave-like, blood walls and everything. Okay. He has zero intention of changing anything about the finish of the room, so no putting in a false wall, no taking down drywall. But he does have access to the attic above the room, so running wires in the wall is possible. He already owns an Emotiva XMC1 and a 7-channel amp, and he has his sources, including Apple TV 4K and Oppo 203. What speaker configuration should he go for? He's got a budget of $5,000 to $6,000 for subs and speakers. The XMC1 can do 7.2 right now. It's supposed to be getting an upgrade to allow it to do 7.2.4 Atmos. When was this?
Keep holding your breath.
When was this written? Like 4 years ago? He'd be fine with setting up for 7.1 now and expanding later. So if you start with one subwoofer and adding a second later, wire for just 5.2.2 right away and stop there. What do we suggest? So I'm a little bit confused here. So he's got the room set up. He's got a riser. He's got an equipment room. He's got a TV of some sort.
But he doesn't have any
speakers.
He doesn't have any speakers yet. That's right. He doesn't have a screen yet either. I mean, he did this right. He focused on the room first.
Yeah. I'm just looking at it and just trying to get a sense for it. So what do I think you should do? I think you should how much do you care about that back row? It's the real question here.
True.
If that back row is immaterial to you, that's going to make a big difference on what you should do as far as speakers. Because if the back row is in any way important to you, then surround back speakers are out.
I wouldn't say that.
They're pretty close to out, dude. They're right on that back wall. Those people have barely got.
I would definitely want surround back speakers for the primary front row.
I would too, but I think that you could get away with doing it this way. I think you could do 5.2.4 and do dual surrounds, meaning you have surrounds behind each of the seats. Wire them in
series.
I always think about it. Series. Then do rear height, top rears and top fronts, but set them up for your just for your main seat there. The top rears would basically be above the second row of seats, which might be distracting for them, but who cares? Because we don't care about them. And then you'd have that, and then I'd put a subwoofer in the front left corner and the back rear corner. Yeah,
the subwoofer placement that absolutely makes the most sense to me. Front left corner, rear right corner. So that's easy in agreement. I would go ahead if you're just like, I'm going to be in the attic. I want to drop the wires down the walls. I'll worry about the exact placement later. I'd go ahead and drop wires for 7.2.6 because why not? Maybe you're going to get an X8500. You've already got the 7-channel amp. So, go ahead and wire for 7.2.6. You're not ideally set up for front wides in this room, so let's not bother with 9. But yeah, 7.2.6, why not have the wires available, and then you'll poke them through wherever you need them when necessary. Because you got the 2 rows of seats, so you could have 6 overheads if you want to. But I'm mostly in agreement. I'd go for 7.2.4 in here. That'd be the configuration I'd go for.
Yeah. Scrolling. Already did there. B.
Yeah.
He'll be auditioning Perion Veris 2 grand speakers since they have free two-way shipping. He's considering SVS Ultra speakers for the same reason, but any other suggestions we think you should try? Well, if you're only wanting free two-way shipping, then I think you got both of them.
Yeah. I mean, RSL does have it, but they're not sort of in the same category as those ones. Anything else is going to cost you shipping, or you'd get them at a store and return them.
Well, I would definitely go locally. I mean, there's no doubt.
I mean, Kef, I'd give Kef Q Series a serious look.
Lots of dealers will. I mean, every dealer I've ever been to has always had Kef. So I got to believe that Kef would be something that you could find fairly easily. I would also consider going to every dealer in town anyways to see if they have like open box areas. This includes your Magnolia stores.
Mm-hmm.
Anything where you can get a deal, it's probably worth taking a look at. So, and I would listen to everything they had. I would listen to everything. Yeah. This is your chance. Don't mess it up.
I mean, Perion is going to be a really nice choice here if you like them, because they've got the in-ceiling models. If you want in-walls for your surround backs, let's say, they've got those too. So they've got the whole lineup. Similarly, NHT, with their C-Series, their top-of-the-line C-Series, they're in the same sort of price range. And again, they have sort of all the various types of speakers. So NHT would be a good one to consider here as well.
Yeah. So he asks, bookshelf or tower fronts, sealed or ported subs. Well, I mean, you can have any of those.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, it doesn't really matter.
Your room's not so gigantic that that anything is excluded here. Yeah.
Right. No, you can get you can spend less money for a ported sub, basically, and get similar performance to a sealed sub, generally speaking. That's kind of what it comes down to. We've said it many times before. You can get cheap, you can get low, and you can get small. So pick two.
You can't get all three.
You can't get cheap and small and low. You can't get you can get cheap, but you got to give up small or you got to give up low. So those are your options. So I guess it depends on how important it is that you not have big subs in a room like this. I really like the cylinders, and the reason is that they fit in the corners really, really well, and you're going to be corner placing them anyways. They're easy on the footprint, and they play nice and low. 2 PC 2000s in this room, crush it.
Yep. So there you're looking at about $1,500 for the pair. If you wanted to save a little bit money, Outlaws Ultra X12s would be a good choice here too.
Yeah.
And then you're down closer to about $1,250 after you've included the shipping. So you can save a little bit money that way. Maybe that'll just squeak your desired speakers into the budget, and you could actually afford all 11 of them. It's that type of thing.
I don't see any reason why you have to go with towers in this room. You do have an external amplifier, so that's kind of nice.
Yeah,
it would be nice. I mean, it depends. I guess you've got 8.5 from ceiling to front.
I mean, since he doesn't want a false wall and all that, I think towers are going to make sense. I think they're going to look a little bit nicer.
Well, I don't know. I think you get nice stands. It's just fine. But that's fine. Yeah.
I'd go towers. That's my opinion.
You could go either way. I think that you don't have to go towers. So if you can sometimes save money that way too. So either way would be all right. What do we recommend in terms of for room treatments? He's concerned about the windows on one side in terms of how reflective they might be, since he cannot mount panels to them. There's freestanding panels you can get from Gig. That would be the easiest way to go. Or where are these windows? Oh, on that right side, that alcove
the right side,
there. Yeah. I mean, just take them and just put a line of them right there, right across that thing.
I mean, he said he's already got blackout curtains, so you could even just put panels behind the curtains.
What I would do, I'll be honest with you, I put the blackout curtains across the entire alcove. Like, I wouldn't black out the window, I'd black out the alcove, and then just fill the alcove with insulation. I mean, you can't really do it. You can't really do that.
For the world outside, you're going to want to have blinds to cover it so they're not looking at raw insulation. But...
So that's what my windows have. My windows in this room, they came with like really cheap plastic. The house came with plastic lavor or whatever called lines.
Louvered. Yeah.
I keep those down, and I
Yeah.
put blackout curtain in front of them.
Yeah.
So to the outside world,
It
they
looks
just
like
see
blinds.
the blinds, right? You do the same thing, but you black out that entire alcove, and then you just get some panels. Like they don't have to be, you don't have to like floor to ceiling cover that thing, but just put insulation in there. Just put a bunch of insulation in there.
Yeah.
The more the merrier, and you're never going to see it, so who cares?
Yeah.
You could use it as a little storage thing too. It doesn't make any difference there too.
But yeah, what else should he do? Your back wall.
Back wall.
Your front wall.
Yes. Depends on where your speaker ends up. You could put something, but you're gonna have a subwoofer there anyways. A couple down the side walls wherever you can place them.
Yep. I mean, we already covered the right hand side. If you do that alcove and then put the curtain across the alcove, that takes care of the right hand side, and then put some panels on the left side. Yeah. That's really about all you need. If this place, if it's carpeted, then that's about it. You don't have to do much else besides that.
So the screen and the aspect ratio, the screen size. Again, he doesn't want a false wall, and the ceiling is 7.5 feet, so he's figuring the speakers need to go to the sides and below the screen.
Yes.
That is true. I mean, that's by definition. That is how. Now, it doesn't have to be a false wall. You could always do a drop thing if you really want to.
Yeah, you could have a motorized screen that comes down.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like that's what he wants.
That doesn't say. It sounds like he really is. He's like, I painted this front wall black, dang it.
Yeah.
I'm going to use this front wall, which is fine. So he's going to put something in there. He's sitting, how far away do we think he's sitting?
He's sitting 14 feet away from that front wall in his primary seat. So I am going to suggest, because I don't want you to get your screen so large that your projector is going to struggle to fill it with light. That's not a happy way to go.
Yeah.
So
you can't go bigger than like 135, right? Because most projectors are struggling.
150 would be the sort of the max.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 130 inches in width would be 150 inches diagonally if it's 16:9. However, that does start to leave you precious little space below the screen for your center speaker.
Right.
So this is a case, since he's already painted the front wall black, I would not be opposed to a 2.35:1 screen here. It would kind of make sense, unless you're like me and you're crazy enough to care about the handful of movies like The Dark Knight and Dunkirk that switch aspect ratios. If you super duper care about those, which I care enough about it that I still want the 16:9 screen, but if you don't, and you're like, look, most of my movies are going to be 2.35:1, here it would make sense, because you could have the same width, which will give you the same field of view, but it won't be as tall a screen, leaving you room for the center speaker. And then with the projector we're going to recommend coming up, the black bars it casts are super duper deep black, and you already have a black front wall, you're never going to notice them. So I wouldn't be opposed. That would give you basically a 140-inch diagonal 2.35:1 screen. And the cool thing is, since you're going to have this mounted on the front wall, you can go fixed frame, and you don't have to spend like crazy. You could get a silver ticket. Silver ticket, 2.35:1. They have one that's actually 143 inches, 2.35:1. That's the standard size they sell. That would be perfect for your seating distance.
Well, how big's his 16:9 going to be, though, when he does that?
If he did, it would be 150 if he went with the same width.
No, I'm saying if he's got the 2.35:1, when he projects a 16:9, how big is his image going to be?
I'll have to work that out.
It's going to be smaller, quite a bit.
Well, yeah, but that's what you want. You want 16:9 to be smaller than 2.35.
I do not want that, but that is what you want. That is true.
That's what cinematic type people want.
Well, okay. I would consider a couple of things here. Now, I know that you've got your black screen or whatever. You could consider a motorized screen that would drop down a little bit earlier into the room, so that you could have a smaller screen, and then your speakers would be have more room to the sides or whatever, but you'd still get the same field of view. I would go with a 16:9 and just get it slightly smaller than what Rob's suggesting here. It does limit your, how big the image is to you, but it would give you enough space to put stuff behind there. Now, he does ask next, should he consider a Seymour AV screen with their manual masking panels? There's no reason why you shouldn't consider it. I don't think you have the budget for it. I think that's where you would lose this. And since you've gone through all this trouble anyways, of all these black everything, and you've got there's nothing magical about what Seymour AV does. It's just magnetic panels that they snap on there.
Well, I'll tell you what I would do. I'd get,
build...
if you want it motorized, I'd get some motorized curtains to the left and the right of your screen, and then you can just jog the curtains in a little bit when you shrink your 2.35 to 1 horizontally to be 16 by 9, which, by the way, would be 115 inches 16 by 9, 143 inches 2.35 to 1.
Yeah. See, 115 inches from 14 feet away seems awfully small to me.
No, but that's for HD TV. That's not for movies. That's for HD TV. That's the perfect size.
Okay. As you say.
Yes.
I disagree. So he says he's got about $4,000 to spend on the projector. What would we recommend?
Man, is that easy.
All right, go ahead.
JVC X590.
Okay, done.
Yeah.
All right. So I got nothing else to say. So you can explain that more if you want to, or we can just go on and tell everybody.
Honestly, that's it. It is $4,000. It's a JVC. It's got the fantastic black levels, and best of all, they've managed to get the full DCI P3 color into that model now. You don't have to step up to the 790 to get the DCI color anymore. So it's got everything you want. Perfect.
All right, who we got left? Because we're stopping.
My gosh, do we have a lot? We have.
Yeah, but they're short questions based on the we went through 2/3 or 3/4 of our questions based on the amount.
Some of that is photos, though. These ones don't have photos. It's just text.
No, that's not my problem.
So, Mark H, Daniel W, Alvin C, Michael L, Mike L. What did I just say?
Michael L and Mike L.
There you go. They are two different people.
Okay. Don't get confused, guys.
That threw me for a second. Brandon N, someone whose screen name is Pack Devil on Twitter. Don't have their real name. Ted, he's back. Ted is back. It's a short this time.
I started off with before I move my before I remount my things. I was like, oh no, Dad, what can we do to help you?
Mark, another Mark, but this is Mark with a C. Miles and Boschko and PJ with his very cute absorptive cat, and David F. Holy cow. That's more than an entire podcast we've left behind. But
oh, well. Life is full of little disappointments. So I want to again thank our listeners of the week. This time our listeners are our patrons over on Patreon. Thank you, patrons.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Patreon.com/AVRant Podcast.
All right. To get your question answered, all you have to do is ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. You might want to wait a week. You'll have to.
No. Don't wait. I'll get responses to the people who need them, and we'll get it on the pie. It'll get done one way or another.
All right. And for AV Rant, I'm Tom Andry.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.